Hello, heathens.
Hello, heathens.
Hello, friends. My allergies have been going absolutely insane, by the way. I can't
Right,
stop getting
same.
stuffy and sneezy and all the S words that go along with allergies.
Snot. Hmm.
Yes, stuffy, sneezy, sniffly.
Grumpy, happy, doc, dopey,
Dopey.
dopey.
Yeah, it's a new list of dwarves, and except for it's all allergies. So like
Cousins, they're
coffee,
cousins, right? Coffee.
throat tickly. Oh
Under the
man.
weather.
Seriously.
Man, I don't know if everybody's out there feeling this too, but the ether is killing me at this point. I've dropped everything. Coffee spilled all over the place. My brushes came right out of my thing onto the floor, and I was like,
Yeah, dude, I've been dreaming so vividly and waking up not being able to fall. Like last night was the worst night so far that we've as we're getting closer to the
yeah.
Samhain or Halloween. I slept maybe 4 hours last night and I was waking up like I was still in my dream, but I was here, but I was
Ooh,
in my
that's a rough
dream.
one. Yeah.
Realities are blending together and it's stressing me out. At one
Ugh.
point last night, I woke up and my brain was just reeling. It was like I thought of 200 things all at once. And I was like, okay, we're going to breathe through this because we can't seem to stop it. And it was
All
just like,
right.
oh,
It actually fits right along with what we're going to talk about today.
yeah,
You have to
actually, that is
surrender
true.
to it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know if you saw this at all, but I didn't know there's a difference between surrender and spiritual surrender.
No, I guess I didn't.
So what we're talking about today is spiritual surrender, where the word surrender doesn't mean what we're talking about without the word spiritual before it, essentially.
Oh, interesting.
Basically to surrender is like giving up or losing or allowing yourself to be dominated. We're not talking that today.
Well, that's very dramatic. I feel like that would probably be the negative side. You know how everything has a dual, right?
Yeah,
So the polarity is the negative side would be losing and surrendering and being dominated,
giving
which some
up.
people like. Right, giving up, like where the stronger aspect of surrender would be more of the spiritual, I guess is how I would have thought about that.
Yeah.
But I did ask AI what surrender was
Oh, and
because I'm in the him right now or her. I don't know. Oh wait, this is not what I wrote. Hold please.
hold, please.
Hold hold please. Surrender is the act of voluntarily giving up or relinquishing control, possession, or authority over something, often in response to a situation or as a result of a decision. It can apply to various contexts, including surrendering in a battle, surrendering to the authorities, surrendering one's personal desires or beliefs.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like that covers basically the entire all of the surrender types of surrendering,
Right. That's how I thought. I'm like, that's a very middle way.
encompassing all of it.
Hmm. What definition did you get? What was the spiritual surrender?
Well, I couldn't really find there wasn't a good definition as much as basically what I was the way that I'm interpreting it is we're just going to be explaining it today mostly. Like we're going to be talking about like what it is and like letting the universe work through you and opening yourself up to spiritual guidance to allow the universe to work through you. It's like spiritual surrender to me is acceptance. And I like, especially
Mm-hmm.
with whatever current situation we're going through. Cause like when I was thinking about it, I was like, damn, this is a good topic for us because we've been talking about it without actually talking about it because
Yeah.
you bring up a really good scenario pretty often when we're talking about, especially like for agreements and stuff, we talk about what's within is without, you know. And we do this often without even knowing that we're not surrendering, we're still trying to control everything around us, right? Like I the big one that I thought about that you bring up is like when somebody yells at you in the store and like you're constantly trying to control, like you're going to tell that person about themselves and you're going to tell them, like, you know what I mean, you're trying to control every situation instead of letting that happen to then be able to look at it from a different perspective of like
Mm-hmm.
why is that happening, because if you're in such a mindset of control around us any situation, you're not going to be able to see through it or behind it or around it, you're just going to see it.
Right. It's the bigger picture. It's the pullback so you can see the entire situation instead of being hyper focused on one point of it.
Yes. Thank you for putting what I my ramble into simplicity. I appreciate you very much. um, Another
Well,
thing I
this is
saw that
and oh, go
oh
ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no,
Oh
no,
no.
no.
Oh no. Oh no, no.
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
no.
no, 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 no,
You
no,
guys,
no.
Nicole and I have been singing no, like in songs, just it's there's no other words and the lyric is only no. So
Only no.
I suggest actually trying it. It feels pretty good. Well, what I was going to say is like along with that, what I also when I was thinking about surrender and then reading it, a lot of the same thing that kept popping up, where I was like, all right, I'll put it in there, like I got it.
Er,
Was that when we surrender to situations, we're also allowing ourselves to give up anything that no longer serves us. And I hadn't actually thought about that because you know, sometimes we hear these words and we get told to do these things and then we start doing them, but we're not reflecting well enough to like think about all the things that it did give us, right? Or like what it did do for us. Cause I feel like when we're doing these topics, a lot of reflection around like the wins or where I still need improvement comes up in my head. And like this was one of them where I was like, holy crap, that's so right. When you surrender to the universe and you're like, do what you will with me, it's crazy how the things that no longer serve you, they fall away whether you want them
mhm.
to or not, and you might not even realize it because they aren't serving you anymore.
Well, it's a tough one because we've been taught that we need to control our lives for the good to come. Like I have to fight so hard to have a good life, right? At least that's what I've been taught, the programmings that I was brought into the world with. What I've kind of learned is that you have to be hyper aware of what you're doing so you know what to let go of in the moment. Because in the moment is super hard to step back and take a look because you're moving, right? So it's hard to
Yes.
stop and look at the whole picture. And surrender is really about having faith.
Oh God, yeah.
Now, this is where we get a little bit tricky because then we bring in religion and everybody has a sore taste in their mouth about religion. So let's wipe the slate clean about that. We're not talking about religion right now.
Mm-mm.
But what I am talking about is trusting spirit. So if we know, we have to put in these knowings, like I know without a doubt the universe has my back and has the highest good to be done at this time, right? So
Mm,
if I want abundance or wealth, I tell the universe that this is what I want. And then I let it go and forget it. Although it's hard to forget about it because we're living it all the time, right?
right.
So it's that mindset during while you're waiting for it to show up. It's that mindset of like, if I say I want abundance and then I have a bill that I had to pay for, like my tires today, right? Like I want abundance. And then I go to get my oil changed and they say I need $900 worth of tires, right? Well, that doesn't look, in my mind, that doesn't look like abundance, right? Because I'm spending money. Like that's not what I meant. That's not what I wanted to do,
Right.
right? But I also at this moment need to realize that I do have, like, I had the money. I called Rob. He brought me some more money up. I paid the bill. I didn't put it on a credit card. That is abundance and wealth right there. So I thank the universe for having this show in front of me. Thank you for having the money that to spend on my tires. Thank you for having, as we go into winter, that I'm going to be safe and the treads are going to be good. Like before, I would have thought that that was a bad thing, and it would have made me into a spiral about like that was negative, the magic's not working, blah, blah, blah. Now, because I've put forth this trust and I've worked with the universe enough to really solid kind of close my eyes and step off the cliff. I mean, not all the way because I still am scared about other things, but at this kind of level, it's like, okay, I know that I need to spend this much and do this and be happy and thankful for it, where it still has that ebb and flow, like even the fact like when your bank book goes down and it's like, oh, it's close, it's zero, like I just spent my last dollar. But then I reminded myself that money is ebb and flow. It's up and down. You have abundance, you don't have abundance. You have abundance, you don't have abundance of it. And I know I've been through countless ups and countless lows. And I'm still where I am today. I haven't failed. I haven't like. So now that brings me to another thing or another observation is that so now I recognize the fact that I have these ebb and flows, right? So it doesn't matter how much money I make, it's still going to be this, right? So I still have money and then I don't have money and then I still have money and then I don't have money. That there is a different frequency, a different thought pattern. So if I've got the money coming in and I know it's always going to come in, it still leaves me in the same abundant mindset of like, you always have the money, but you don't have any surplus kind of thing. It's not like I can say my version of rich, like, oh, I'm going to go and spend $20,000 on whatever, and I'm just going to have it, right? So now what I'm working on is trying to realize what's the mindset for that level where you have almost like a savings account. You have that cushion. You have, but I don't know how their brain, like does this make sense? Am I making sense?
Yes.
Okay. So like now I'm trying to figure out how do I think my way through, what do I need to change in between here and here? Because I realize it doesn't matter how much money I'm making, I'm still in the same spot. I'm good. I'm really good. I love my life, but I'm not changed the actual structure. I've just been successful with the structure I have.
Right.
So I don't know where that's going to go, but that's what's on the table right now. It's on the table.
Hmm. But to round it back to like your original point of even bringing it up is like you have faith in it. You don't question it. You don't
Right.
question what you're doing in it. You don't try to control it when things come up. You surrender to it and you say, okay, obviously it's for the better. Nicole and I have talked about this before, and this can get a little touchy for people in the moment, right?
Yeah.
When we say things like everything happens for a reason. it's not to negate your feelings, because your feelings are valid and you have to acknowledge them. You have to feel them, right? It's not to negate your fears or your hopes or anything like that. It's more about the faith that Nicole and I have when we say that to you, because we're trying to share that faith with others in the
Mm-hmm.
universe of that everything happens for a reason. And a perfect example is like, say you didn't get those tires. Maybe it's going to be really icy one day and those tires save your life.
Right,
Having new tires
right,
on your car, if you wouldn't, you'd slide through an intersection or something. The universe does things in a very beautifully orchestrated manner. We just can't see it because we have egos, and our egos
right,
love to control everything. They create, our
right.
egos are the ones creating boundaries and limitations that we imprison ourselves in.
Illusions. Yeah.
Yes,
They
yes,
create this illusion because my illusion was like, oh, they're not that bad. They would be fine. But if I trust that spirit is talking through this mechanic, I trust the fact that I'm in a vibration where he's not going to lie to me. He's not going to see, oh, she's a woman and she's not going to know and I'm going to get her. Right. So I'm not in that kind of mind frame. I know he's telling me the truth. So I get to choose. Again, you get to choose, do the tires, don't do the tires. Right.
right.
And
You also
then,
get to choose that mindset that you have behind it, because guess what? If
mhm,
inside you're like, this guy's just trying to get one up on me, he's probably gonna, because that's what you want
right.
to happen. That's all you're thinking
Well,
about.
right. You're going to be the vibrational match to that thought. Right.
Yeah,
So if I go in there thinking that they're going to be dishonest and they just want to get money from me, that's exactly the person that I'm going to be a vibrational match to.
100%.
So if
100%.
I go in there confident, I go in there like, this is my friend, my homie, he's going to take care of me. That's exactly who I'm going to attract.
Yes, exactly.
So this so the faith, and this is the whole thing, is I really feel like because religion is on downfall, because people are questioning it, they're going to have lack of faith because it's a really hard sell in a material world. I mean, this is all of what the fool is about, is having faith, having nothing, having everything that you need to be successful. And the world wants you to think that you need everything to be successful. Like, we can't start a podcast because I don't have the right computer, or I don't have a microphone, or I don't have,
Studio.
do you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't have a studio. I don't have a support. I don't have somebody supporting the money part of it or whatever. Like, we didn't have any followers when we started, right? But we knew that spirit was leading us to this point to talk about this, to show people that it's obtainable. It's a gateway, like, to kind of get into it and not be so scared, right?
This goes into something I wanted to talk about too, which I just want to give you guys like reassurance behind surrendering because of things that we've done, what that have happened for us. And this is a perfect example of one. Is like, starting the podcast was fucking scary, okay? It was
Mm-hmm.
scary. Nicole and I
Mm-hmm.
have all these thoughts about ourselves, okay? We're not the best talkers, and what if we're not entertaining? And you do that stuff to yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's that little
What if
voice
I'm not,
inside.
yeah, what if I'm not smart enough? What if I'm
Yeah.
not
What if nobody
whatever?
cares about anything we're saying and we talk to ourselves and
Yeah.
we're just in the ether talking to ourselves, to each other for the rest of life? You know what? It's
Mm-hmm.
fine. Because the point of me saying all this is that fully surrendering, it allows you to live life without fear. And
Yeah.
it I saw this quote, and this does sound a little religious, but again, we're not talking religion. Keep in mind these are just words, but they're powerful words, where basically our fear dissolves into thy will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just for the universe. You know outside of religious stuff, we all have ancestors. You can't deny that. You have ancestors. And
Mm-hmm.
we have lines and lines and decades and centuries worth of ancestors. And if you don't think one in that is going to have your back on the other side,
Right.
Come on, man.
because it's the same bloodline.
Yeah.
That is spirit's manifestation of that bloodline, right? So spirit is going to manifest into the material world, and then you keep evolving from that thing. So like if I look at my grandma and look at my mom and look at myself and look at my daughter, I can see the evolution between like my grandma, the way she is, the way she grew up, to my mom, the way she is, the way she grew up, where she's at right now, to myself,
Yeah.
where I'm at, where, and then to see the fruits of our labor into my daughter, right? Like that's the evolution chain, right?
Yeah. My
You can
grandma even
see
talks about
it.
it.
Yeah. So it's the bloodline, the spirit is evolving through us. So essentially we're new people, but we're evolving from that as well, right?
Yes.
Like, because spirit's not going to repeat itself. So we have to evolve. We have to have different minds.
Exactly. Something I wanted to also bring up is like the realness behind this, you guys, is that it's happened to me, it's happened to Nicole, it happens to freaking everybody. Once you realize it, once you become aware enough to realize what the hell you just did, it it sucks, but it can be comical because if we're being super real, most of us don't want to let go until we're literally smashed into freaking pieces. And even then, sometimes it still doesn't happen, so we have to be smashed even harder. So we need sometimes it takes trauma or a tragic situation to be the only powerful thing to get our attention and show us that no matter how hard we've been trying to control everything, we're really not in control.
No, and that's the thing. Control is very much an illusion that we tell ourselves that we have.
It's
And
a pretty illusion.
it is. It makes me feel good. Like if I control the way my baby like acts or cleans her room or whatever, if I try to control her, like I think I'm making a good human. Or I'm a good parent, which can go on the flip side, and your ego can be like inflamed because you're above this. You have more power over this person, right?
Yeah.
And I know very much so that I have no control over that baby at all.
It's basically a filter. You're putting up a facade for yourself of control and like you got this, you can do this, you're controlling it. And the moment it doesn't happen, that's when that trauma or this tragedy or things can happen that suck. And you're just like, either you're like, oh, no, 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 I can control this too. And then something else happens and you're like, no, I mean, it's a lot, but sure, I'll control that too. And like, it'll get to a point where it's like the universe can't softly tell you, stop doing what you're doing. And you
Stop
be
holding on
something
so
bigger.
tightly. Yeah. Stop
Yeah.
holding on so tightly. It's just like, I guess the analogy of surrendering is, if you're going to go down a river, if you lie flat, hands over your heart, and float down the river, you're going to do better and not hurting yourself because you're going with the flow, right? The problem is that we judge things bad or good. We got to get out of the habit of judging things bad or good. If it's bad, if you've deemed it bad, then it's actually a lesson for you to be learning. So why is this bad? Why did this hurt me? What did I have to take away from this experience, right?
Yes. And to add a little footnote to what Nicole just said, I want to make it extremely very black and white clear that surrendering isn't passive. It's not like you jumped in the river and you're just flailing around. You're still one, you jumped in the river, two, you're when you float, it's not just you're not just buoyant. I'm sorry, you're not. Like unless it's like, I don't know, what is it, 80% salt water? Like you're not just gonna float without like doing things to help your body float. We're making sure you're
That's a
relaxed in the right
choice,
areas. You're keeping
right?
your head up. It's not the surrendering isn't passive. It's a choice. It's a
It's a
choice to take
choice.
action when you're shown where to take action. And everything will just become more clear. It's not doing nothing at all. It's us becoming more aware. One, we're becoming more aware of what's happening and where we need to surrender. And then what happens is we start learning to pay attention to who we are and who we're trying to be, and we really get to start seeing things outside of just our filter, our boundaries and our limitations and our illusions that our egos have created, right? We can start
Mm-hmm.
seeing things more clearly.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to see those things because even I going to this retreat that I went to got a huge like I think that I know myself, and then all of a sudden, you have to sit there and tell me no, that's ego, and I'm like, oh shit, you're right. Like we're so good at gaslighting ourselves into thinking ego's so good at hiding.
Yeah, that's a great way to
You
say
think
that.
you're doing the best thing. Like this is no, I'm doing this is it. And then all of a sudden you're like, you got me again, buddy.
Yeah, you little fuck, you got me again.
Yep, yep. I got a couple steps or on how to surrender a little bit, or a little bit like guidelines, I guess. So the first step would be like acceptance, like acknowledging the reality of the situation and understanding that you may not have control over it. Two would be letting go, releasing attachment to specific outcomes, desires, or expectations.
Sorry, I can feel the sneeze coming. I was gonna mute it if it came, but it didn't come. So I
Yeah.
was like trying to look into the light, and then I got blinded a little bit, and I'm like sitting here. I'm
I
listening,
was
but
like,
I'm struggling.
you look, you look like you were thinking, and you were like, what did she just say? Like, and I was like, do you have
Thoughts? No, I don't.
thoughts? Okay. So third is trust. Trust, have faith in the things that will work out as they should, or that you will find a way to cope with the situation. So again, you have to find, this is the thing, is like you start off small with magic, with spirituality, with manifestation. That's why in The Secret, they tell you to start off with like coffee, manifest a cup of coffee, manifest a parking spot. And the reason why you do this is because you start to trust the universe. You start to see the patterns on how, like, I did this or I thought this and I felt it. And then this is what manifested, right? Like it's, it's like you put your order in and then this is how it showed up. So what we have to do is sever our expectations of it and really see how it shows up, which is tough. That's a tough one too. I feel like expectations and desires and outcomes is where we really get like um bundled up about it, because that's, you're like, well, I want it to show up like this. And then somewhere through the ether, it like shows up like that.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, basically what you're doing when you're doing this is you're handing up your ego and your self-will to greater knowledge and understanding that we do have inside of
Absolutely.
us, but we can't get to again when ego puts limitations and boundaries on ourselves.
Because
Basically, you're putting your ego on a silver platter and you're
yeah.
offering it up to the ether. Not a god, not a deity, not anything like that. You're just offering it to the ether and you're saying,
Hmm.
I don't need this right now. And
Right.
you know what? I'm willing to open my eyes to you and not this thing I held on a silver platter. It doesn't need to be here anymore.
Hmm. And it's really hard to find that what that feels like. So
Yeah.
that way you're more aware of it, because your ego keeps you safe. That's
Yeah.
its job, right?
Well, and what I was going to say too, that's a perfect prelude to this, is I was just going to say that you guys, like, when you're starting this journey of surrender, it's okay to be worried or to be fearful, like, especially that you'll lose control or that you won't be able to handle what comes next. like fear is normal, right? And it's okay to feel fear. The key to that is just not letting your fear stop you from still moving forward.
Right, right. Like, traveling by myself, like that was scary, right?
Yeah, that is scary.
And I have a very creative imagination and I watch a lot of horror films. So of course, like it's amazing, up here.
Same.
But I did it anyway, right? It didn't stop me. It didn't like I did it anyway.
Yeah,
Not only am I proving myself that I'm brave enough to do it, but also going through the outcome is know that like I can do something like this that really kind of scared me and be okay. Actually be more than okay after the end of the journey. It's kind of like the thing
absolutely.
with anxiety because I talked to Trent about this. I go, the reason why you have so much anxiety is because you haven't actually like proven yourself. You haven't went on that journey and like, fell down, learned something new, realized that like you can fix a tire or you can like um put out a fire or you can feed yourself or you can find yourself in the right place. Like we haven't proven ourselves to ourselves that we can actually do things and have the confidence to move forward with just our brains and our knowledge. Like, like being, and we have a thing in magic where like you want to be able to be dropped down into the forest or the jungle and start doing a magic immediately. So that way, like, you don't have any limitations. You don't rely on these things that are external, like I'll need a candle and some incense. Like, no, you literally can just do it. And I think this is why, like, the Native Americans, they would put their medicine people, one of the things they had to do is go out into the forest and like spend time out there and survive. And then they would come back and they would be they'd learn what they learned because the forest taught them or the woods taught them or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah, what I would add to that too is that to understand fear, you have to understand that fear helps us learn about where our limitations are at in that moment. And it gives us a greater awareness of ourselves. So when you get scared, confront your fear, okay? Accept
Mm-hmm.
that you're scared, first of all. Enter into that fear and start discovering what it can teach you about yourself. That's
Mm-hmm.
when you start gaining faith in yourself alone. You start gaining that what you're doing is working. You start trusting yourself. You start learning all these things about yourself because you're exploring why you feel scared instead of
Mm-hmm.
letting it just be, I'm scared, and that be a period at the end of that sentence, and that's it.
Right.
You don't do
That's right.
anything about it.
No, and that's very like all the brave people are scared. They just do it anyway. And
Yep.
that's really what we got to tell ourselves is like, yeah, starting that new business is fucking scary. Go walking into a spiritual community that you don't know anybody at, that's fucking scary too. Like, but you do it anyway, right?
Yep.
Because I got to know why. I need to like, A, I need to prove it to myself. B, I need to like, my answers maybe in that cave that I need to go into and find whatever, right?
Yeah, and when you start really looking at your fears, say it like it's like your example of going to a class, a spiritual class where you know nobody. If you start entering into your fear and you're like, you start asking it questions, right? You're like, okay, I'm scared. Why am I scared? Well, I'm scared of being judged. That right there is an answer. Well, I'm scared
Right.
nobody's going to
Right.
like me. That right there is an answer. I'm scared that they're going to call me out in class and then I'm going to have to talk in front of everybody. That's an answer too. Then you can start really digging into this and start seeing where that fear is. And then you start learning, like I said, limitations like, okay, like I don't want to be called out in class because I don't like public speaking, especially in this situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to not try to be in the center of tension. I'm not going to be the one that's walking up to every single person trying to make
Mm.
sure that I'm being seen. That's
Right.
going to feel good to me. And then it leaves the door open. If something happens, awesome. then people will talk to me. People will want to talk to me. I'm open to that. But like for me, I'm not going to push myself in there.
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah, because even like when I was at the retreat, a lot of times I do a lot of observing, right? And I don't necessarily, it makes it kind of awkward because I'm not talking to people and everybody else is. But then I learned how to just sit with that awkwardness and be okay with it, because I realized that I don't want to be in a conversation about superficial things. Like that's not the way my brain works. And it's a little a waste of my time.
Yeah.
So if I know this about myself, then I need to be okay with sitting in the awkwardness of like the social normities that we tell ourselves is so how we're supposed to be as human, right?
Yeah. Like you're alone. You shouldn't be
Right.
alone. You should be meeting people.
Right, right. And it's like, no, I don't need to, but I'm there for it. Does that make sense? Like, I
My
also realized that like you think you're the weirdest person in the room. You're fucking not.
You're fucking not. You never are.
No.
You
Mm-mm.
know what? It's my spiritual. I was laughing because my spiritual brain go was like, "Are you really alone though?"
Right.
No, I'm not.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. So with support or with surrendering is really good. You just got to find the place to do it. You got to know when to fight and when to surrender, right?
Yeah.
So this is where it gets a little tricky. So, and only you can really tell yourself when you need to fight and when you need to surrender, when you need to
Yes.
move forward. A lot of times it's just moving forward. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go walk or drive or take this class or, that kind of thing. But also find some support that you can talk to somebody about it because this is a good sounding board. Because a lot of times I can ask somebody a question, and when I ask it out loud, I get a certain feeling inside. But then I also have like Cassie, and if I say something and she's like, no, bud, that's ego. And you're like, oh, you're right. I see it now. Like there's stuff that, we're blindsided by. And that really helps like to have those people that you can trust. And the thing is when they say something that goes against of what you don't want to hear, this is where trust comes in as well.
Yeah.
Because if my head is foggy and I'm asking for guidance and you say something that I don't want to necessarily hear, or it's not the answer I want, I have to realize that I trust you enough to hold my hand through the fog to get me out of it, to be like, oh, you're right. I see it.
That is a great way to say that.
That's a tough one too. Like, because
Yeah, because like
if
also
you're
once you
Stowe's talk, right, go ahead.
yeah, once you start asking yourself these questions, you start figuring out what surrounding means to you, like you open yourself up to a whole new world of opportunity, right? You're letting go of the urge to control everything. You become more adaptive and flexible. And you know what? A really good example is Nicole and I wouldn't be here without surrendering to our universe because there
Hmm.
has been an insane amount of times. I can't even tell you almost all the classes that we've taken and all the people that have entered and exited and re-entered and exited and the people that are still in it right now. It happened. It wasn't like we were searching for it. It happened. It got
Hmm.
laid in our path and it was like, here, take this class. And we were like, okay.
Right, right.
It wasn't a control. I got to control everything. Now I'm going to learn this, even though the universe wants me to learn this. It's never been like that. But it's been
Hmm.
amazing because of the plethora of knowledge that we're gaining and have gained, the amount of classes that we've taken, the things that we can like regurgitate basically
Right,
because
right.
of how much we have taken. But that was all blind faith in the way of like, I trust the universe and it's going to take me where I need to be.
Hmm.
And here we
That's
freaking
a,
are.
and here we are. Um, it's hard to realize Like, basically, if I've done a magic spell for what I want, everything after that that comes into my life, or everything that happens to me during this time frame between here and here, is exactly the universe putting in the puzzle pieces to get me to where I want to go. And that's what we think we have to control. It's like, no, you set your intention, you follow the path and don't judge it, and it leads you to the ending place.
You want to know what I just heard?
Huh.
This is why they say love finds you when you're not looking for it.
Oh
How
yeah.
many times do we hear that? Yeah, I thought I was done dating. I didn't think I was going to date ever again. I wasn't even looking,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the best relationship I've ever had.
Right.
Love finds you when you're not looking for it. You're not trying to control it.
Because you're not putting out a desperate beacon.
Yes,
It's a different vibration.
it's a different vibration.
And when you forget about it, and see, this is where it gets a little tricky, right? If I am desperate inside, looking for my Romeo, uh,
Juliet.
Juliet, I can't cover that over with like, well, I don't care, indifference, right? Like I can't cover it over with like, oh, well, I'm not looking for love. I'm not. You legit have to get to that point to, right? Like you have to get to that point.
Fucking preach it. It's not passive. You can't be
Oh,
passive.
no, and you can't
Surrender
cover it
is
with
not passive.
frosting. You can't cover it with frosting. It's still fucking there,
Yes.
right? You can't lie to the universe. It knows. It sees right through that bullshit.
You're like, this is a cake with frosting. And the universe is like, no, it's not. And you're like, yeah, it is. Look at it. I put it on a plate and put a candle in it. And like, isn't it such a pretty cake I made? And the universe is like, wipes the frosting off.
No, it's not.
That's not cake.
That's not cake. And that's where we get in trouble, is because we're not truthful with ourselves and how we feel
Yeah.
because we've judged it wrong or bad, right? So, really looking at yourself and how you feel and not judging it so that you can become a different vibration on that.
It goes back to your first step that you suggested of acceptance. That's true
Hmm.
acceptance without judging it bad or good, which is hard to do, right? Because like something happens where you feel like it's bad or you feel like it's like not a good situation or it was such a bad thing that happened to you. It's hard to not wallow in it and be like, God, that
Yeah.
sucks. That was so hard. That was like this for me and that for me. But like again, we're not bypassing that, right? We've talked about this all year. This is why surrender is happening more towards the end of the year, you guys, because we've learned about anxiety and fear and anger and all
Hmm.
these different emotions that we've had, and we've learned how to sit with them, work through them, right? We're
Hmm.
not bypassing the fact that we have feelings. We're not being passive about our feelings. We're going to sit with our feelings. We're going to acknowledge them. We're going to try to figure out where they're coming from, and we're going to move through it. We're not in it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's because what's going to happen is that whatever you're trying to manifest or try to get out of the universe, it's going to show up no matter what.
Yeah,
And if you don't like the way it shows up, that it's exactly what tells you that what you need to work on.
right, right.
Because once you get those ingredients out of your soup, out of your cake, like then you'll have a better cake.
You're
You'll
gonna have a
attract a
good
better
soup,
good soup.
chef's kiss cake. Chef shush smash spring.
So I would suggest, if you need a little help with this, is get somebody that can be honest and truthful with you. Um, Maybe even like somebody that's a spiritual mentor or a therapist, like a spiritual therapist. Somebody that understands how this kind of works. Uh, Show compassion to yourself while you're going through this, because this is difficult because you're sifting through stuff that you can't necessarily see. And it's gonna be blindsided because you've ignored it for, in my case, I've ignored it for 46 years. And then, you know, it's like that sock on the rug that you've seen and you stepped over 17 times
Yep.
because you're ignoring it, right?
Right.
Um, Learning and growing, using the experience of surrender as an opportunity for personal growth and self discovery.
Yep.
And these are the things that are really going to help you on your journey and help you understand that you're not a victim to your life, but
Right.
yet it's free education. You are in a university, right? You
I
don't have
like
to pay
that.
this back.
That's a great way to say that.
Well, it was that whole thing that came to me when we were having a trouble with Alpesh, right? Like, so I wanted to be a better business owner, right? And then all the stuff started happening. And I was like, it took me a minute, but then I was like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that it was being done to me because this is what's going to make me better,
Yeah.
right? So having that strife, that argument, you know, that thing with him made me a better business owner because I realized what I have to do in the next frame.
Yes. Yes.
But if I wasn't aware of that, I would have been a victim to it. And this would have been to me, and I would have been the victim, right? So,
To
yeah.
add to this, something that I've learned through surrendering too is that as your awareness, i.e., your consciousness grows through this process of consistently surrendering and being flexible and moving where you need to move, right? You'll start to become more aware of your intuition. And this is where people
Mm-hmm.
experience like a quote unquote awakening. We don't love
Mm-hmm.
that word because of everything that goes behind that word, right? But it's true. It's where you start becoming so aware of yourself. Your intuition starts getting stronger. And then you start being like, holy shit, am I psychic? Did I guess that? Is it true?
Yeah.
Am I making this up? But it's like, this is really truly where the universe gets to start guiding you because you're in tune. You're no longer in, again, your
Right.
own imprisonment in your head, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
your consciousness is growing, your intuition starts getting stronger, you start being able to trust the universe even more than you already thought you did.
It's totally true because even like now, like there's stuff that I would normally worry about that I've come to the point of like trusting the universe. Do I worry about it? I do, but it's quieter.
Yeah,
And that's only because it's a habit.
right.
So I'm like breaking that habit of like, okay, like I should be worrying about this because it's the only way it's going to make it successful. To wait a minute, I've been through this before. I've been on the other side of it. I know what's going to happen. Trust the process to get there.
Well, and what's a habit? It's a
Uh,
pattern.
a pattern.
We're breaking the pattern, we're
We're
breaking the
breaking the
cycle, we're
pattern.
starting a
Hmm.
new one, we're moving away from this. I work really hard. I work really hard. I work really hard. I'm working on myself. I'm working on myself. Oh, it's good. It's good. It's good. And then we fall back off because we're not doing any more work. Right. The
Right.
next bump comes and we fall straight down. We don't go over the hump. We fall down before the
We
hump. And then we
fall.
got to
All
start
right.
again. And we're breaking the habit, which is in relativity a pattern.
Hmm. That's very true because it's like you don't realize their like even like just the simple thing of worrying, like you don't realize it's a pattern until you realize it's a pattern, which I know is like
It's so
so
true.
like saying it so stupid sounding,
Yes. But it's
but it's
so true.
so true.
You guys, I feel like this is true for me is what I want to say. When I started getting on this path, Nicole came into my life. Okay. It was just in my mind at the time, it was happenstance that this is where I wanted to kind of go. She was going that way too. And we just happened to bump into each other. Was that coincidental?
Hmm.
Not, no. But when you get into this path, you start meeting more people like this. And it is absolutely hilarious when you start making connections with people like Nicole was saying, where you can have somebody to just tell you things about yourself, right? And like
Hmm.
things about situations that you can't see because they're not in it, but they also
Right.
think similarly to you. And when you have that person that looks at you after you've explained this big ass situation that you have really won, you've overthought it, you have all your feelings behind it, and you have all your limitations and boundaries on it because you can't see it without your blinders on. You're only looking at
Mm-hmm.
this, and they can see it because they don't have the blinders on of feelings of overthinking and of not surrendering, trying to control it, right? And they look at you and they say, that's a pattern, and it smacks you like the biggest awareness you've ever had. It is funny to look back on after it happens because you're like, son of a bitch, you're so
Well,
right.
and sometimes like you and I do this to each other, and
Oh, yeah.
we don't even say like, "Oh, right, you're right." The first instinct is "fuck you." Like,
Yeah. It's like, fuck,
and
fuck.
then you're like, "Wait, she's not just gonna tell me something dumb. Like,
Yeah.
like she's not trying to like manipulate me in some way." So then you have to step back and go, "Okay, so that's not true. So then there's got to be validity in it because of who we are, right?" Like, and
Yeah.
it's
It's
like
like
it's
these people.
so this is surrender too, is surrendering from like you realize that you were thinking about this wrong and surrendering to the fact that you're like, "Fuck."
It's like your friend reached up and took your blinders off, and you held still. You were like, all right, take them off. And then they took
Right.
them off, and you look around and you're like, damn it, there's so
Right.
much more. There's Where did that even come from, you know?
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Even, like yeah, I remember there was one time where I was, like, talking to somebody, and they're like, "Well, that's projection." And I was, like, so mad at myself because I was like, "Fuck, I forgot all about projection.
Yeah.
Forgot all about it. Put that
Mhm.
shit on the shelf and let it get dusty because I was not using it at all." And then they were like, "Ah, here's your sign." And you're like, "Shit."
You're like, damn, I was using it the whole time.
Right, right.
Um, One thing I also want to say before like I have given all that I had on this is we're talking about the four agreements next week, so we'll get into this further next week. But
I'm so
um
excited.
we say this all the time. Do you know what I'm gonna say?
Oh god, I don't know.
Don't assume. We have to remember
Don't
when it comes to surrender,
assume.
don't assume, okay? Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, and being able to change, you guys, it's the only way to submit completely. Being able to change is the only way to submit completely,
Mhm.
because you might see this path, right? And the universe has laid it out, and you think everything's going great. And then all of a sudden, a turn gets put in there that you actually should be taking.
Right.
So don't assume it's a bad thing. Don't assume it's a good thing. Just take the turn.
Go down the road that you don't usually travel on because you may have missed a accident. We've heard this,
Go
told
down the road less traveled.
right. Like we've heard about this, right? Like, yeah, it looks scarier. Yeah, it looks like it's more work. Yeah, whatever. But like you're judging it. So don't judge it and walk towards it, right?
Yep. You're assuming. You're assuming that it's going to be worse or it's going to be scarier, that it's going to.
Mhm.
Assuming is one of our greatest killers in life.
Absolutely.
Gets us in trouble.
Assuming and what was your oh, there's another. Yeah, assuming. I think assuming is the one thing that I say all the time to people. Like, don't assume. You're
Yep.
assuming.
I say it to myself a lot too. That's
Hmm.
out of all the four agreements, that
Oh,
is
and
one
don't
of the
take it
ones.
personally. That's another one.
I'd say assuming's number one
That's
and don't take it
yeah,
personally is number two for me.
absolutely.
Because, like, the reason I'm taking it personally is because I assume
It's
that
because I
I know
assumed.
what you're feeling and you're thinking inside of your head.
Yeah. Yep. And so they go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So I have a few more things written down. Uh, keep in right. Keep in mind that surrendering may be difficult for everyone or different for everyone. And it can be easier said than done, especially in different situations. And how we attach and how we are attached to each situation. It often involves mental and emotional shift
Mm-hmm.
in how you approach and accept the circumstances. So go ahead.
We just talked about this in our last episode on projection, right?
Mhm.
One of the kinds of projection is assuming or holding other people to the same, well, I did it, they can do it too, is what that sounds like. We all have different realities.
Absolutely. We all have different gifts. We all have different filters of way we see things. We're not supposed to be the same.
No.
Spirit, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. I'll probably get it tattooed across my spirit did not copy itself. It is trying to discover itself through us. So it's never going to repeat itself. You are never going to be like somebody else because that's not what it's going to do. That's not what it's here for. Um, Trust. Really look into that word trust. Really feel it. Really you see what it means to you. If you have to meditate on it, look at different spiritual advisors and what they say about it. Really get to know it.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're somebody who like when we had to talk about the not bringing religion into faith thing, if you're somebody that isn't religious, that's okay. No judgment. I employ you to start looking at like the metaphysical meaning behind trust, how to gain trust spiritually.
Yes.
You can find more resources that way and find things that work for you without having like all these other things attached to it that might not necessarily speak to you.
Hmm. Well, it's going to stop you from worrying so much
Yeah.
and having anxiety. This is where faith and trust walk hand in hand is they help your anxiety and they help your worry to be a little more like, are you not going to have it? No, I don't think so. Maybe you are, but like at this point, I'm thinking no. So faith and trust around your anxiety and your worry is how it's supposed to be. That's what faith and religion is really supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like we I saw a lot of the things that I looked up was like a surrender to God, like how to surrender to God, right? And if we were in the right universe or people were actually true to their word, and didn't have their own manipulation or their own agenda to get to things and to take advantage of other people, we would understand this a little bit better. But it gets entangled, and what I want you to do is really sit with this if it triggers you. But surrendering to God is just like surrendering to the universe, it's surrendering to the energies that you're putting out there. If you are surrendering to somebody and letting them, you don't necessarily want to surrender to somebody that you don't know what their main goals are. Like you being a what do I want to say? Just blindly following a person, right?
Mhm.
You want to blindly follow spirit because spirit's never going to lead you wrong. With people, it's okay to follow them for a while, but at some point there might be an expiration date in that relationship, in that person, in that they're going through their own evolution at the same time that you are, right? And
Right.
sometimes those evolve differently. So there will be an expiration date or something that becomes toxic when it wasn't before. This is where discernment comes in. So what we really want to do is start with Intuition 101. Start with building this foundation within inside yourself to trust your gut feeling because that's really what you're doing. So when you're up against something else or something that you're not quite sure of and you don't know how to kind of trust and use your faith for this, this is where discernment starts to tell you maybe not, or maybe go this way instead, or that kind of thing. So this is why you really want to build this foundation inside of yourself. Go to those classes. Go to, those things that help you. It's like working out. So then when you really do need to use it and it's in your best interest, you can hear it.
Yeah.
You can be like, oh, I don't know. I'm getting a little, because I've had to do this. It's all science experiments, right? I'm like, I don't feel like I should go to this person's house, but I don't quite know why. And I don't really know if it's going to be good or bad. So I go anyway. I know that I'm choosing to go against my intuition and I'm going to go anyway because I need to really like trust my intuition. So I need to know why this is going to be bad for me.
Yeah, you
Right?
need the results of the science. It's a science experiment.
Absolutely.
You can't cut it in half and be like, oh, the results are inconclusive.
Right. That's not going to help me. Right.
No.
So I go anyway. And then I realize now when I get that feeling, what the end result is.
Right.
And that's how I learned to trust my own intuition.
Yeesh.
So let's see here. Question everything. Find the answers.
If we
Find them
can't
in
say
multiple
that
places.
enough,
Seriously.
I mean,
Question
I question fucking
everything.
everything.
Absolutely. Why do I stop here? Why am I doing this? Why do I sleep this way? Why does my arm hurt? Like,
I question and like, why is the veil thin?
right. Why is it then?
Why is it thin? Why do we use why were Christmas trees on Christmas? Was one of my big ones when I was a kid. Why do we have wreaths? Why do we hang lights? Like why do we do all this stuff? Question everything. You learn so much. It's fun.
And put it in pencil because I can tell you what, that like you'll question something and then 5 years down the line, you'll be like, oh, fuck, like that. Yeah, because you're
Sometimes
going to
days
change it.
later.
Yeah, you're going to change it.
Yep.
You're going to change it. It's just a level up.
And write it in pencil again.
Absolutely. Because in 5 days, 5 years, you're going to change it again.
Yep.
So write it in pencil because this doesn't make you wishy-washy though, because I know that some people was like, I have convictions and blah, blah, blah. You're just putting in pencil. So a lot of times I'll say, the way I believe right now with what I have is this.
Yeah.
Knowing the more I learn, the more people I meet, the more I talk about this, it may change. It may not, but it may change. And I want to be open and receptive to that change because I don't want to get stagnant.
Also, beliefs are not facts, okay? So like when you're like, I believe in this, it's a belief. So keep that in mind too. Like, words have power. So like I always say my understanding of this right now. If I use belief, I'm like,
Yes.
that's my
Yes.
belief as of right now.
Right.
It could change.
Well, and it's hard because I do feel belief is kind of a hard set, like a strong conviction where
Mm-hmm.
like if we talk more with like how you said understanding, this is my understanding right now.
Yeah.
Like if we use that more compared to like, even a belief, like we can probably shift it. It'll be able to shift a little bit easier for us, right?
Yes, you're such a cat. That I saw that little like bug go and you were like
Ugh. I was like, what are you doing? Die, fucker. Here we go. I killed it too.
cat.
I am a cat.
You are a cat.
Um, Now, if you wanted to do surrender more for like manifesting, I didn't really get real deep into that, but there is a teal swan video that I was watching that when I searched for it, it was really not up my alley at this point, but super interesting. And it is called, hold please, the great spiritual conundrum, attaining attain what you desire or surrender to what you want. And like I said, it was more about manifesting. Like, do you desire it and then that's how you manifest it? I don't know. I'm not in the whole thing, so I don't really know what I'm talking about at this point. But I was very like I want to like unpack it and see what it is because I'm
Yeah.
super excited about it. Because I'm a nerd, super nerd right now. I'm like, yes, I need to know. Um, I don't even know what I wrote there because I can't read my own writing. So I think I'm done with surrendering. I'm
Oh, you're
surrendering to
done
surrendering.
surrendering? We're
I'm
not
done
doing it
surrendering.
anymore. You're
Nope.
done.
I'm done. I'm done. Done.
We're trying to
So
help you guys to get to surrender, but Nicole's done.
I'm done.
No,
I'm
no,
done with
no.
surrender.
No,
We're
no,
not
no,
doing.
no.
No, 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 no. So I guess to close this up, um, surrendering is one of those things that'll be the best tool for you to get through this life with a little less strife. And if you really sit with it and become friends with it and know when to apply it, it's really going to be a very big tool in your spiritual bag. Um, because it is one of those things where sometimes we get so busy at wanting to fight the world and show our right and like uh have our words be heard that we forget that we just want to breathe and we just want to float down and we want to go with the stream. And that's what surrender is all about. It really is that finding that peace and that flow that you really want to ride down.
Beautifully said.
That's all I got to say about
I concur.
that.
I will say, like I said earlier in the podcast, we are going to be talking about the four agreements next week. We're going to be doing a soft dive. And then in season 2, we will be breaking it down further because honestly, there's a lot that goes into this.
Hmm.
A ton. I feel like the Four Agreements is one of those books for me that it's not a quick read. It's a thing you kind of let it ponder, you ponder it, you let it sink in. So we're going to do a soft dive on it this next week. And then, like I said, we'll be breaking it down into probably a 4-part series next year in season 2.
Yeah, because it's one of those books that you read. If you read every 6 months or read every year, it's a great come around and to like refresher. Because it's one of those books that like you read it and then you read it again or you revisit it and you're like, is this a whole new book? Like, what the fuck? Like, I thought I read this, but
Yeah,
all this new stuff is like coming up that I didn't even see the first time I read it.
right.
So it's a great book to like, and it's not super big and it's not super hard to understand, but it gets a little complicated to like implement it in life.
Yeah, any new concept, regardless of how easy it sounds sometimes, like I always say, I have a lot of, oh, I knew that, but I didn't know that. It was a duh moment. Like, duh, yeah, I
Yeah.
know that, but I didn't know it.
Hmm.
Kind of like that.
But it's one of the quickest tools that like you and I have used. Even my sister and my mom are really good about like, oh, don't assume. Oh, I'm taking it personally. Oh, it's been really good in my family just to like, to be able to pull out and be like, oh, right there, buddy. Right
Yeah.
there. It's like shit. Did it
Yep.
again.
And I do it again.
That's right.
All right, my friends. Well, we will talk to you in the next episode on the Four Agreements.
I'm excited.
All righty. Well, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.